Welcome to tonight's Saturday Night Special, episode 71.
I'm Jeff Brown from the Read to Lead podcast, challenging you to reach true success in business and in life through consistent and intentional reading. One way to be inspired to success is to listen to this, the Inspired Stewardship podcast, with my friend Scott Mater.
The employee that it's not that you're not replaceable. Everyone on this planet is replaceable, but you become the person that's the hardest to replace. And that helps create the sense of security. Plus, it helps give you new opportunities to grow and to move up in a company and take on more responsibility if that's what you want to do.
Welcome and thank you for joining us on the Inspired Stewardship podcast. If you truly desire to become the person who God wants you to be, then you must learn to use your time, your talent, and your treasures for your true calling. In the Inspired Stewardship podcast, you will learn to invest in yourself, invest in others, and develop your influence so that you can impact the world.
In tonight's Saturday Night Special, I share why at the end of the day, we really only seem to buy two things, either the avoidance of pain or the creation of pleasure. I talk about why that leads directly to two categories of work. You can be paid for something that makes life better or easier, or you can be paid for something that solves a problem or reduces pain. And why the best things often involve things others don't know how, want to, or have the skill to do. You know, one area that a lot of folks need some help with is around the area of productivity. Getting not just more things done, but actually getting the right things done can be really, really tough. I've got a course called Productivity for Your Passion that's designed to help you do this and then to hold you accountable and walk with you so that you can tailor productivity not just to be getting more done, but actually getting the right things done. What's more, we take the approach of looking at your personality and how you actually look at things in the world and tailor the productivity system to your personality. Because the truth is, a lot of the systems that are out there are written really well for somebody with a particular personality type. But if you have a different approach to things, they just don't work. But there's tools and techniques and approaches that you can take that will work for anyone. And we help you do that in Productivity for Your Passion. Check it out over at inspiredstewardship.com/launch. You know, the truth is, at the end of the day, when you think about what we buy, what we spend our money on, what we spend our time on, what we spend our effort on, I would argue that they can kind of be put into two big buckets. One is if we have a problem, we have a pain, we have something that's going wrong in our life or that we perceive as possibly bad or wrong, we will spend money and we will spend time and effort trying to get that pain reduced. And then the other side is we like to create experiences, we like to create ideas, or we like to bring things into our life that are aligned with what we consider pleasurable, what we consider a good thing, something that we can spend time and effort and money on that creates some sense of pleasure in our life. Now, we don't always do a good job of actually correctly identifying what reduces pain or what creates pleasure in our life. We often will focus on things that create short-term reduction of pain or create a short-term pleasure, when in reality, something that we could do that would create a much longer-term sense of pleasure or sense of reducing pain would be the better way to do things. We don't always do a good job of thinking strategically about what creates these things. But almost everything is marketed to you as either it's going to help solve a problem or reduce pain, or it's going to create pleasure in your life. And what's interesting is it's not always accurate in its marketing. But if you think about it, if you think about advertising and marketing, that's what comes into our circle. And I like to think about it that way because it helps you frame what you're doing. If you're being marketed to, it helps you recognize it. And if you run a business and you need to create, what is it that I do? It's important to think about these two things. What's more, it's important to realize that oftentimes what we do or what is marketed to us can be marketed either of these ways. Oftentimes, creation of pleasure or aspiration is the other side of the coin from describing it as a pain. In other words, if you think about what I do as a coach, I could talk about how I help people get unstuck so that they can move forward. That's kind of focusing on the pain part. But I could also talk about how I help people master their time, their talent, and their treasure so that they can live out their calling. That is a more aspirational way of saying it. But really and truly, they're two sides of the same coin. And that's true of most things. And if you think about it, that then means that when we do work, whether this is as a small business owner and we're creating something, or whether this is as an employee, when you do work, people will pay you to either help make life better for someone, to help solve a problem for someone, those sorts of categories. Why? Solving a problem helps avoid pain, and making life better helps create pleasure. And at the end of the day, whether you think about the gig economy, whether you think about a self-employment situation, whether you think about running a small business, whether you think about creating a product, whether you think about a service, whether you think about what you do as an employee, all of these things really come down to being paid for one of these two things. You're being paid to solve a problem, or you're being paid to make something easier or better for someone. And the truth is, oftentimes, some of the highest paid people are people that can find categories where they get to do both of these. And what's more, if they get to do both of these and they also bring to bear either something that others don't know how to do, don't want to do, or don't have the skill to do, you create some of the highest paid opportunities out there. Think about it for a minute. What is a plumber doing? Well, a plumber is often coming out, either there's a problem, and so that's the avoidance of pain, or they're doing regular maintenance, or they're building the new plumbing for a new construction, which is often creation of pleasure. Plus, they bring to bear a skill that not everybody has. And they're often doing something that not everyone wants to do. Trust me on this one. If you've ever seen what plumbers have to do day in and day out, most of us don't want to do it. And they're also bringing to bear things that we don't know how to do correctly. I don't care how many YouTube videos you've watched, you don't know the intricacies of plumbing. HVAC, the same thing. I don't want to climb up into an attic in the middle of South Texas in the middle of summer. I would pay someone to do that. And that's indeed what often HVAC guys are paid to do. Plus, they have specialized skills that I tell you right now, I do not have. I don't have the trading. I don't have the knowledge. You can take it to a service thing. When you think about me as a coach, again, I have some skills that not everyone has. I've learned how to ask questions and bring to bear certain ideas that not everyone thinks about. I look at the world a certain way that not everyone looks at. And that talent and that skill is something that people will pay for. Plus, I help people avoid pain and create pleasure. So both of those things are part of coaching. And guess what? Because of that, a good coach can be compensated for that. If you think about working as a cubicle worker, if you're just pushing paper from one side of the desk to the other, you're still, if you want to be a linchpin employee, somebody that they depend on, focus on how is it that you help both the customer and the client and the company avoid pain or create pleasure. Think about how you can develop skills that not everyone in the cubicle next to you has. Think about how you can learn how to do things that not everyone knows how to do or wants to do. And you can create a situation where you're a linchpin employee, the employee that it's not that you're not replaceable. Everyone on this planet is replaceable, but you become the person that's the hardest to replace. And that helps create the sense of security. Plus, it helps give you new opportunities to grow and to move up in a company and take on more responsibility if that's what you want to do. This filter of recognizing that this is what we really both pay for and get paid for helps position you no matter what, whether you're an employee, whether you're self-employed, whether you want to start your own business, whether you're currently even a stay-at-home parent is going to be doing these things to be able to get recognition from others, because that's what you do as a stay-at-home parent. You're just doing it without money as the reward, but you're still being paid for that. All of these things work. And when you recognize that, it helps you build up your skills in a way that positions you to be the key person in all of these situations. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much for listening to the Inspired Stewardship Podcast. As a subscriber and listener, we challenge you to not just sit back and passively listen, but act on what you've heard and find a way to live your calling. If you enjoyed this episode, please do us a favor. Go over to inspiredstewardship.com/iTunes rate, all one word, iTunes rate. It'll take you through how to leave a rating and review and how to make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so that you can get every episode as it comes out in your feed. Until next time, invest your time, your talent, and your treasures. Develop your influence and impact the world.